This episode is brought to you by the Arvada Center, because they're kicking off their summer concert series in June. Relax under the stars at the Arvada Center's outdoor amphitheater and take in acts like Melissa Etheridge, Big Richard, Tower of Power, Preservation Hall Jazz Band, The Spin Doctors, and so much more. Concerts are scheduled for June through September. You can find a whole schedule of events and get your tickets today at arvadacenter.org. That's arvadacenter.org. Today on CityCast Denver. Why in 2024 would a Democrat vote against gay marriage? Because that happened and we have questions. Plus, the Avs' top goal scorer got suspended this week, leaving his team in the lurch in the middle of a playoff run. So me and producer Paul Caroli and one of our favorite returning guests are talking about all the local stories that mattered this week. And Red Lobster. Today is Friday, May 17th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Welcome back to CityCast Denver, the show about the city that may have eaten its last Cheddar Bay biscuit. The parent company of Red Lobster abruptly announced the closure of 4 metro area locations this week, along with dozens across the country. Are you guys sad about this?
I'm devastated. And I feel like this is going to totally ruin my fail.
I mean, me personally, not at all.
You could save it. You're not sad at all,
No,
Paul?
sad for the country that we're losing a great institution like Red Lobster? Absolutely.
Oh, Lord.
This chain is on the verge of bankruptcy. There are still a couple that are going to be open. I was reading about.
Yes. My bestie
like
said there's
North
one in Aurora.
Glen, Aurora. They're going to have Red Lobster. So the cheddar biscuits, which I don't even think I've eaten one in my entire life.
What? Oh my God!
I
It's
know,
like
scandalous. So, whoa.
I mean,
whoa.
my life hack is you can actually just get the Cheddar Bay mix at Safeway, Walmart, Target, King Supers, wherever you want. You can make them yourself, which is all that Red Lobster is worth to me, because otherwise it's just like a $29 frozen dinner.
Yeah. Well, that's what I liked about this story is that the 4 locations that are closing, they're liquidating because they're just trying to like downsize the chain because they're going to enter bankruptcy, which means that they have to lower their costs.
Right.
So that's why they're getting rid of these restaurants and they're liquidating because they're trying to recoup some of those costs. So if anyone out there wants to rebuild a unlicensed Red Lobster in their garage,
you could do that complete with
possible.
The lobster tank, all the nautical flags.
Do they have a lobster tank at Red Lobster?
In the very front. It's like the most.
That's so creepy.
It's the most depressing part.
That's
Well,
so like.
My dad always took home the plates and stuff from the Red Lobster, so we already had a collection of Red Lobster
Oh
dishes.
my God. Of course you do, Justine.
That was my father, not me. But he would make us carry out his to-go container with the claw crackers clacking against the sauce.
Oh my God.
So.
You know what? At least it was Red Lobster. You were like, it's a national chain, whatever. I mean, the most disturbing part to this story, though, is their endless shrimp promo they decided to just make year round. And that is apparently what bankrupted them.
Huge money loser.
But like
Duh.
Gastropod did an episode a couple weeks ago about the shrimping industry and like how disgusting and unregulated it is.
Oh, it's horrifying.
It's horrifying. So I was like, what? It's already got to be cheap as hell, but that really sent them over the edge.
Same with lobster. I don't know if anyone's ever read. Have either of you read David Foster Wallace's Consider the Lobster?
No.
Went through a phase with him, like most white guys
males.
in college.
Definitely.
No, I didn't finish Infinite Jest, but I did finish Consider the Lobster, and that's my favorite piece he's ever written. I think that's the one. That's my rec for anyone who's thinking about Red Lobster and lamenting this week.
I follow a lobster guy on TikTok, and I've learned all about like tagging, and if they have eggs, they notch the tail so they can't be kept, so it keeps the lobster population going. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I have a lot to learn.
This is a hot topic.
It is, apparently. Well, it's Friday. We're in the 5280 Magazine studios. You've already heard his voice. Producer Paul Caroli. Yes, Paul stands. Paul is back.
I'm back from Bobert country.
Paul's here. We're going to talk more about that maybe later.
We'll talk more about it. Definitely.
We'll see. And of course, we have another great guest today. The only lady, I think, in the country with the title of politics and green chili correspondent for any media company, Justine Sandoval.
What up, everyone?
Well, enough about Red Lobster. Clearly, we could talk about it all day. The big story for us, I think, this week is Avs star player Val Nichushkin suspended for 6 months and re-enters this NHL player assistance program. He's the leading scorer. Well, it was. Paul, you'll share a little bit more about what has happened since, but he's been suspended for 6 months unpaid, and that means he's missing the rest of the playoffs. Paul, this is such a nuanced story. Can you explain a little bit more about he's in a program? It's very vague. I had a hard time finding information.
Vague. It's very vague because it's very sensitive.
Yeah.
Because this is a program for players with mental health or drug issues.
Sure.
And so that's basically all the team has said. That's all we really know about this situation. It's kind of been percolating for the last year and a half, at least in public. Obviously, it's a private thing that he's dealing with in his life, which we don't actually know. The rumor online, which is, again, just a rumor, is that he has an issue with cocaine.
Yeah.
But what's kind of become clear over the last year is because there was an incident during the last playoffs, is that this is a chronic problem that's being exacerbated during times of high stress. And the other thing to remember about this guy is he is a Russian born. So he is a Russian born 20-something
in America,
in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
He's a very highly paid, which means this comes with a lot of high pressure. He's in this country where he's not familiar with people. He probably doesn't have a support system. And then when the playoffs have rolled around the last 2 years, he has had a couple of major incidents. Last year, in the first round series against the Seattle Kraken, there's a story, and I'll pull this up from CBS is where I was looking at it this morning. Woman found in Avalanche's Valeri Nichushkin's hotel room in Seattle had to be transported to the hospital. Nichushkin has disappeared from the Avalanche's playoff series against the Kraken. I don't remember if he missed 1 game or 2 games, but this woman was, quote, severely intoxicated, had to be taken to the hospital. The team was totally hush-hush about this at the time. But then
it doesn't look good.
Then they got eliminated, so it was kind of not an issue anymore. It just went away.
That's what I kind of felt too, was like we just stopped hearing about it.
Yeah. Then this year comes around. Nichushkin, he is exploding on the ice. He is a very talented player. He's what you'd call a secondary scorer for the team. He's not McKinnon. He's not Makar. Those are the guys you pay a lot of money because you need to rely on them to contribute. Nichushkin is secondary scoring. He's the guy who's supposed to step up and, he's the guy that wins the game for you when he gets a surprise goal. But this year he's taken a big step forward. He scored 9 goals. He was one of the leading scorers in the whole playoffs, let alone the team, the leading goal scorer for our team. And now he's just gone.
He's gone.
Hours before Game 4 against the Dallas Stars, where they're down 2-1 in this series, we find out that he's failed a drug test. And that means he doesn't re-enter the program. He has actually escalated to a new phase of the program, which comes with a 6-month automatic suspension with no pay.
Yeah.
So this is his players are his teammates are finding out about this hours before a huge game. His coaches are finding out about this because this program is separate from the team itself. It's a league program that he's been in separately, and it's just been very disruptive. Now, fortunately, the team has managed to pull together. They won a big game last night.
Right.
The next game is on Friday. Again, they're facing elimination, but they must be just absolutely rocked right now. I mean, this is devastating. That's
what I was thinking about. Justine, I was thinking this is a tough situation. Obviously, he's struggling with something, but also he has these obligations to his teammates, the franchise, fans. I imagine his team feels rattled in the midst of the playoffs. What struck you about this story?
It's interesting. We talk a lot about people struggling with addiction and especially people in high profile roles like this. But at the end of the day, it seems like the teammates are just basically saying that they feel like their teammate has a problem and he's dealing with something really deep and they're wishing the best for that person. And it really comes down to, this is bigger than hockey. This is someone's life and someone as an individual dealing with something major that's going to impact them beyond their career. So, I'm glad that there's these types of programs, especially we see this in other different sports where there's not that type of safety net.
Yeah.
So I think this is positive for people dealing with it. But it's difficult because you're on a team, right? And your teammates depend on you. And there's been now twice when it's coming to the playoffs when you haven't been reliable. But hopefully this person can get the help that they need and in time, win back trust of their teammates.
Yeah, and I think the support system part is really crucial. This program sounds like, that's what it's there for, hopefully. I think about my friend Kaylin Heffernan said this once when she lost someone close to her. She said, who passed away from substance related issues. She said, I wish that their death certificate said trauma. And I think a lot about what's behind all of this. And it's just, he happens to be in a high profile situation, like you're saying. But at the end of the day, this is probably related to something else totally off the ice, maybe something from his childhood. I mean, we genuinely don't know. I just know from folks who've struggled with substance use issues, it's usually related to something way different or separate. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's not just like he has a problem. And I just wonder, what's he been struggling with? Because that story about last year, Paul, too, I mean, that did not seem like a good situation. And we don't know, but like an unconscious person in a hotel room, you don't want to be found that way.
Yeah, I mean, the mind races about what could have been happening. Best not to speculate, probably.
Yeah, for sure. But again, this is like, this is playoffs season. This is like this is what they do this for. What does this mean for the Avs in this moment, Paul?
I don't know. I don't know if I care so much about the team in this moment. I think this
Really?
is a story about a guy. You know, I feel bad for the team. I want to root for their success. I still will, but this is a separate thing to me. Like, I'm sad that they lost this player and that they're going to have to adjust strategically. But for me, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not how I think about the team as a sports fan.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And it seems like the team has played without him and still, been successful. So, they just move forward, but it really is about the individual. And like you mentioned, mental health. I know any of my personal struggles with addiction usually came after a spiral of mental health. So it all goes hand in hand. So it's really about taking care of the person and their well-being.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I feel a little bit differently in being a person in this position a little bit, not to this extent by any means, but sometimes I do feel that it's valid that the people around us want us to show up better. Also, I agree this is about a person. I agree this is something bigger than hockey, but also at the end of the day, you made a promise to some people and you failed them.
Yeah. I mean,
so that's where I struggle too, is I see two sides of it. And I just think that there's space for teammates and even fans to be a little bit disappointed while also wanting him to get better,
Yeah. And the promise in this case is a contract that he has with the team. It's an 8-year, $49 million contract that is going to
lot
last
of stress
through the 2029-2030 season.
But that's also an opportunity that some people never get, that also try to get to that level. So it just gets more complicated, I think, when you're high profile and there's money involved and there's a lot at stake.
The other thing I think is worth talking about around this is that I don't think really people understand like the culture of the game so well.
Can you talk about that? Because I don't know a thing about it.
Yeah, it's really hard to parse, but like the world of hockey, it exists geographically. Like there are hot spots around the world. There's some places in Canada, like Minnesota, Boston, some areas in Northern Europe where hockey is just so popular. And those are the places that have the really strong feeder systems. So if you're a young player and you're really talented, like a young Valeri Nichushkin, you are going to probably go and travel to one of these places when you're 15, 16 years old and you're showing potential. And then that's where you're going to play.
Yeah.
And so, and also, this is an extremely homogenous group of people, which, I mean, you can talk about this in a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of good conversation to have about this. But I was talking to someone who used to work at Altitude a few days ago, and she was just like, this is the thing that struck her. All of the people she would talk to at the whole company, because it's the players are the players, but then 10 years later, those players become the executives. Like Joe Sakic is the I think he's the president of hockey operations or something for the team. He's the architect of the team right now, but he's just one of the same people who's been through the same system. And these are guys who, as soon as you show potential, if you're growing up in like small town Ontario, and your parents can afford it, which is another huge factor in hockey, the money is way bigger than other sports because it just needs to be. You have to pay for travel for elite competition, and that's how you get good. So if you want to get good, you got to send your kid to go play for one of these elite programs in Quebec or in Toronto. And then you're a 15-year-old boy with 20 other 15-year-old boys, and that's how you grow up for the next 5 years. And if you're great, the stakes just keep getting higher, and all you're doing is just, you're in this echo chamber. You're very isolated with all these people who are a lot like you. I mean, there was a horrible incident with the minor league or the junior team Canada a few years ago involving a like 5 or 6 players and a sexual assault allegation.
Oh, good Lord.
And all of these players are currently in the NHL. I think a lot of them have taken a step back, but like there's a lot of good reporting that has yet to be done on exactly how these feeder programs work that send these guys into the NHL, where they're then totally ill-equipped for the emotional rigors of the sport.
Yeah.
And in this mental health transparency revolution we've had in so many other aspects of our life right now, it has not penetrated these professional sports leagues, at least not this one.
And if you're someone like him who's maybe more prone to substance use issues, this just only exacerbates it. And then you don't know anything else, or there's no real conversation happening around it to change, like you're saying, the culture outside of this program that might be addressing it, but not addressing the issue before we get there.
Yeah.
I think that's so interesting. Well, it's something to watch. The Avs are they're still doing great, at least, but we don't know what's going to happen with him. I think we'll see in 6 months. Maybe if he reappears, we'll know more, but it's very hush hush at the moment. I understand why, but be curious to see if he ever speaks out about what he's going through.
I don't even know if he speaks English. I've never heard him speak English.
That's also got to be tough too. I just think culturally and expressing yourself and people understanding what you're going through. Maybe also just culturally, Russian culture is so different from a lot of what happens in North America. So, well, we wish him the best of luck.
I really hope he's
health.
okay.
I hope he's okay too. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more news. This episode is brought to you by Pine Melon, the farmer's market delivered. Pine Melon is a next-generation grocery delivery app that partners with over 200 farmers, ranchers, and producers in Colorado to help make fresh, locally sourced foods available to the Denver community at fair prices. Get high-quality meats, eggs, and dairy from small local farms, fresh baked breads from local bakeries, and more, as well as all of your favorite pantry staples. Best part is, Pine Melon offers same-day delivery to Denver and soon Boulder within a 2-hour window, no subscription necessary. Save time in your busy schedule and get fresh and healthy groceries delivered right to your door. Join the movement and support local today. Use promo code CityCastDenver for $75 off your first delivery at pinemelon.com. That's pinemelon.com.
If you're unaware, T-Mobile calls themselves the Un-carrier, which is fitting, considering they've just unraveled their price lock guarantee for new customers. If you ask me, that's pretty uncool. If you're uncomfortable with a company that says one thing but does another, then stick with Xfinity, whose whole home Wi-Fi, wired internet, service, speed, and reliability are unparalleled. Avoid the Un-carrier. Stick with Xfinity. Effective for new customers after 1/17/24. T-Mobile's price lock will only reimburse your last bill if you terminate service due to a price increase.
And we're back. This time we're heading up to Colorado Springs. Civil unions, as they're called, have been legal in Colorado since 2013. Justine, also, sorry, this feels like ancient, but also I can't believe it's only been like 2013.
Yeah, 9 years. Yeah, not very long at all.
It's crazy, but it's still, the language in our state constitution still forbids what's called same-sex marriage. Recently, legislators voted to put the Protecting the Freedom to Marry amendment to the voters, which would remove this language and sort of reaffirm our support and Colorado's stance on marriage for all. And that it's passed, so it will be on the ballot this November. But Heidi Beadle at the Colorado Times Recorder astutely pointed out, while this did pass and will move on to voters, Democrat Regina English from Colorado Springs joined the Republican caucus in voting no. Justine, what do you make of a Dem in Colorado voting this way in 2024?
I mean, it's actually really disheartening because we had 6 Republicans in the Senate and 2 in the House join Democrats to pass this bill.
Wow.
So it's like an issue that is not partisan like people would think in Colorado. And actually a lot of issues are, like abortion as well. But like abortion, it's was only protected by the Constitution federally, the right to marriage here in Colorado. So if, like when Roe fell, if same-sex marriage was to fall in Washington, then we would have the same thing here. So this is going to set a protection, and it's pretty standard. I think, people are on board with it. So it is, like I said, really disheartening to have a Dem in the year 2024 24 vote against something so simple.
Paul, you saw the Colorado Springs subreddit was talking about this.
Not before I got there.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to reveal yourself.
Let's talk about it.
I don't know.
No, I'm happy to. I'm happy to.
I'd love for the context because we're not in Colorado Springs and we know that this is more of a conservative place. But what are folks there saying about this?
Yeah, well, how I got there was I actually disagree with you, Justine. I don't find this disheartening at all. I actually really appreciate when our elected representatives represent themselves because now
show themselves.
Her constituents get to vote their values and they know that this is what she believes. So I may disagree with her. You two may disagree with her. Maybe not. I don't know. But now we know this about her. And as Heidi Beadle pointed out in her article, the previous 2 votes on those trans rights bills this session that we have been talking about,
yes.
She was conspicuously excused from those votes.
Yeah. I saw a couple comments sort of on Instagram about that part of it was like, interesting that she keeps being absent for these issue related bills that.
Yeah, clearly she didn't want to come into the crossfire, betray her caucus. But also, clearly to me, this is her conscience. She, as she identifies on her website, is a woman of faith. This is her belief.
I think the disheartening part for me as a Democratic strategist is that, as a party, their time and money and resources. And during that campaign time, I think from what I understood, she was out front in support of LGBTQIA issues. And then when you get in the House, you totally turn your back. So yeah, in the sense too, it is nice to know people's true colors because I think her term ends in 2025. So there'll be a chance for voters to elect a strong Dem because at this point, there's no need to have a weak Dem on any of these like core issues. That's
what I kind of thought was like, this is not something Dems are even debating anymore.
I think the argument sometimes like, Colorado Springs, that area, there's has to be, you have to walk the line, but you really don't anymore in Colorado. So, and when you look at the margin she won by, I think it was like 57%. I mean, I don't think that that's an excuse, like saying, I've got to be more conservative in Colorado Springs because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, you all are talking about this as if the Democratic Party is like a given. I think the party here is maybe a distortion. And I think, Justine, you and I are disagreeing on this, and that's fine. But she's showing her values. Like, I think we should be celebrating when people break with their parties and vote their consciousness for the reasons I was saying a few minutes ago. She betraying her party, like that's not something I personally have a stake in. There's a lot of unaffiliated voters out there who just don't have any investment in these party bureaucracies. And I'm not sure.
No, it's a human rights issue to me, and it's just weird.
That's a separate thing. Okay. Then we're talking about the issue.
I don't know. I'm kind of with Justine here, though. It's like money and resources and time and support go into supporting and getting this person elected with the assumption that they stand for some pretty basic tenets of what the Democratic Party stands for at this place and time. And it seems to me that she presented as one way and now is voting another with these other absentee votes on crucial sort of moral issues.
I agree with you. I think that assumption is where we have a disconnect, is because you're not the only one. And you talked about the subreddit. Maybe we can get back to there. But last night I was just thinking, like, what the hell am I going to say about Representative Regina English from Colorado Springs? I'd never heard about this woman before in my life. So I posted to the Colorado Springs subreddit Heidi Beadle's article, and we'll put a link to this thread in our show notes.
She was the one that pointed it out. She just pointed out the vote.
Great article, great reporting as usual from Heidi. But the conversation really took off in the Colorado Springs subreddit because I don't think you all are wrong. I think a lot of people were surprised by this vote. There's one person here, Kevin19713 says, I'm really disappointed in her. She came to my door before the last election and we had a really good conversation. I guess I just assumed that she would support gay rights. Now, I'm reading into that because this person thought she was a Democrat. Democrats support gay rights, but that's the party. That's the label that got in the way. That's what caused the assumption. Kevin's assuming something about this person, not asking for himself.
But like I said, I kind of am with Kevin, though. It was like, I assume it's a given. It's not a controversial issue anymore. It's like,
Yeah.
we are not debating this. We've debated it. Democrats have come a long way on this. I mean, it's notorious that Obama was not supportive of it and initially and had to change his name. Beto O'Rourke, I was just reading about similar situation. So I'm with the voter in that, like, there are basic things that when someone presents themselves a certain way to get your vote, you're assuming this is not something we've been discussing for a decade.
Look, the parties exist to give people a helpful heuristic. If someone's associated with a party, you think they're associated with a certain set of values, but it's just not always true because everyone has a different path and a different perspective that led them to where they are.
I just don't know why she's not a Republican then.
Yeah, they'll run with the Democratic Party.
Maybe she shouldn't. She shouldn't. Maybe the Democratic Party should kick her out if they don't want her to if they don't think she represents them.
I just feel like I just feel like she wasn't being honest.
Yeah.
Well, if we could point to a
up to
specific claim that she made, then we could say that. But obviously Kevin felt disappointed, but he made an assumption. And we were talking about assumptions earlier. If we can point to a specific claim where she said, I support the LGBTQ community, I will vote to protect civil unions, then we could call her a hypocrite. But if we don't have that, we can't do that.
I think I don't know if this is considered proof, but I feel like Heidi included this photograph intentionally, which is Representative English at an event for Jared Polis.
Yeah.
He's an openly gay man.
That doesn't mean she endorses this policy.
But it's like not supporting the person, the humanitarian aspect of what I think a lot of these issues for Democrats are about.
Yeah, and I think it's dishonest, not outright, but you show up for Polis, you show up at these events, and then you just never say and you skirt by with the assumption that Democrats have a standard that you are, supporting gay marriage and you're on.
Yeah.
And there's so much vetting too that goes with like groups that endorse you. They go through and they ask these questions. Like if you were in the House, would you vote to this, that, and the other? And that's usually like how people move forward with kind of that understanding with stakeholder groups too, that you were going to be an ally when you were in the House.
Yeah, and this is another great line from Heidi's article, actually, is there's some quotes from those stakeholder groups like One Colorado.
Yeah.
One Colorado, a representative here says, we know that Representative English has supported the LGBTQ plus community in the Colorado Springs area in the past, and One Colorado hopes to continue the conversation with Representative English about allyship. So
I felt like that was a very nice way to be like, what the?
Yeah.
Lady?
She's not an ally, at least not on this vote.
Yeah. Well, and there's less is the less is more happening here where she's not speaking out by not voting on things is sending a message as well to me.
Yeah. Well, I hope her voters in her district remember this when she's on the ballot again, because that's how the system works. And it only works if we remember and we point out these things that matter to people.
Yeah. And again, I do applaud Heidi for just pulling up the votes on this and just saying, hey, this is interesting. Looking at this is like, that wasn't necessarily reported initially in the coverage of it that I saw of this bill passing. So
yeah, totally underappreciated journalist in this state, Heidi Beadle.
Someone just paying attention to things that like nobody else is paying attention to.
Yes, I agree. One of my favorite. And if you look through, Heidi's been reporting on Regina since like the very beginning. So she's been following very closely.
So she's been honing in on something that maybe other folks were missing.
Do you all want to hear a couple more of these comments from the thread?
Oh, yeah.
Because some of them are pretty fun.
Yeah, from Colorado Springs. Sure.
Okay. So this person says, this person's referencing what you were talking about, Justine, the SCOTUS thing. The First Amendment is their username. They write, Colorado was just named the third most dangerous state. Cost of living is through the roof and the housing market is absurd. But thank God our representatives are focused on passing a virtue signaling law that has zero effect, as SCOTUS already laid this issue to rest. That one caused a flame war, as you can imagine.
I'm about to log on to Reddit.
Get in the mix?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I have things to say.
Hell yeah. Here's the other one
Watch
I
out,
like.
Chubby's fan 69 is here.
Yeah. I'm actually going to Chubby's right after this. I already put in my order.
Good for you. Okay, here's the other one, and then we can move on. But this person is called I'm Here Because of Kramer, which whatever. They write, wait, wasn't this the same lady who tried to charge me $50 a year or something to have a dog? Can't remember the exact amount, but if Crazy Lady is going to try that, this isn't exactly a surprise.
That's a strange connection.
She introduced a bill at one
I
point
assumed it was about licensing dogs.
pets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But this is that was that person's hot button issue, but this is just pushing them over the edge.
You can see how they're voting. Yeah. pet fees and civil unions. That's a 2-issue voter right there.
Well, I hope for the sake of Regina's constituency and herself, she figures out what this looks like for next election. Fascinating stuff. Well, we're always interested in what's going on in Colorado Springs because it's often something weird and wild that's not happening here.
It is an interesting place.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, our wins and fails for the week.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy. Sound the gifting panic alarm. You need to get an amazing gift. Wait, no, the perfect gift. Relax. Now you can use gift mode on Etsy. Gift mode on Etsy takes the stress out of gifting, so you can find the perfect item for anyone and any occasion. It's easy. Just tap or click gift mode on your Etsy app or Etsy.com. Then answer a few short questions about who you're shopping for and what they like. And gift mode instantly gives you curated gift ideas based on hundreds of personas. Now it's simple to find gifts made by independent sellers for all the people in your life. So whether you need a housewarming gift for the new homeowner or a birthday present for the pickleballer, Gift Mode has you covered. Need to find the perfect gift? Don't panic. Try Gift Mode on Etsy now.
This episode is brought to you by ServiceNow, the AI platform for business transformation. AI is only as powerful as the platform it's built into. Enter ServiceNow. It puts AI to work for people, for employees, for developers, and even your customers, removing frustration and supercharging productivity. On our intelligent platform, AI isn't just a promise. It's happening today. That's why the world works with ServiceNow. To learn more, visit servicenow.com/AI for people.
We're back. It's time for our Rocky Mountain highs and lows, wins and fails of the week, things that ruled, things that sucked. Justine, what's your let's start with fails.
Okay, my fail has to do with our Red Lobster conversation. And it's not so much Red Lobster, it's the specific location that's shutting down.
Okay.
Which one was yours?
Let's get into it.
So my Red Lobster, my family Red Lobster, my childhood Red Lobster, where you got to go after continuation and
I know I was
dad's
gonna say
birthday
prom
and
or
whatever.
What's continuation? I don't know that.
Oh, that's when you go from
you go from 8th grade to high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry
yeah,
to derail. Go on.
Yeah,
Grade 8, as you guys call it in Canada.
You got
Thank
good
you.
grades.
Now I understand.
You got good grades. You got to go to Red Lobster. Like since the 90s, 44th and Wadsworth was like the north side Red Lobster. Like, because it's Wheat Ridge, but Wheat Ridge and like the north side touch.
It's right on that
So
edge.
we spend a lot of time on the other side of Sheridan. But the 44th and Wadsworth is closing down, and I'm just really sad because it was a location that we went to since I was a kid. My friend and I go every year for Lobster Fest. It's like our tradition. She sends me like Lobster Fest reminder, and we have a date night and we go to Lobster Fest. So
But what I love about this fail for you, Justine, is it's a dichotomy people don't like about us, which is we're like hometown, everything Denver all the time. But guess what? We also grew up in the 80s and 90s when chains were everywhere, and some of our feelings are attached to those things.
yeah. Well, I was thinking
just
about
real.
Mr. Steak. I don't know if people remember Mr. Steak.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was one right on 44th and Lowell, and that was like our go-to. And then when Mr. Steak closed down, it was Red Lobster, which is right up the road. So it's like another
It's like interchangeable. It's like whatever was close, this is the fanciest. It's just, yeah. So I feel you a little bit. That's how I felt when my neighborhood Bennigan's closed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Bennigan's. I remember.
Which is now a
Bennigan's.
Core Power yoga. Which is such a weird transition. But
Justine, do you have any memories of Hacienda, Colorado?
I don't, except that no one that I knew liked their food.
Yeah, same. I'm thinking about it because that's another local chain that the one near me is all boarded up. I think they might be falling apart as well.
Well, it's like, and also it's like one of those things in Colorado where it's like there's kind of no point in going to a chain Mexican restaurant. Like it's so ubiquitous to get any, I don't know. It's more like Italian food at Olive Garden or seafood, something special.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Genuinely, if you are a Hacienda fan, I want to hear from you because I am very confused.
Send us your Hacienda, Colorado memories. Send us your Red Lobster memories. The CityCast Denver chain restaurant hotline is open.
Your Bennigan's memories, your chill. I have so many Chili's
Mr.
memories.
Steak, don't forget.
I want to hear
Mr.
about specific locations. What made them great or terrible?
Good service. Yeah.
Send us a text. Leave us a voicemail at 720-500-5418.
Okay. And gosh, we've sure talked about Red Lobster a lot today. Paul, what's your fail?
So I mentioned that I've been in Boebert country. My fail comes to us from the race to represent Congressional District 4 in Congress, which is the district that Miss Boebert is running for. I'm not going to address her. That's for another time. We're going to talk a lot about that. But my fail this week goes to one of her opponents, who we met in person on Saturday at a candidate forum. His name is Richard Holtorf.
I know. Justine, try to hold back.
Are you familiar with Mr. Holtorf?
Oh, I am.
This guy is quite a character. I didn't realize this, but we were talking to him about some comments that he made about Miss Boebert on KNUS a few weeks ago, where he said that she dresses like a prostitute, which is a gross sexist smear.
Yes.
But then we asked him about it in person, and maybe we could play a second or two of this tape. But his response was the words that you'll hear, but then physically.
Yeah.
Free.
He was very physically imposing on us. You can tell he uses his size to sort of bully. Like Paul is a tall man.
Yeah, and also very strong. Bree, tell them.
And I'm the strong one in this situation. But we were both like pushed into a corner by Richard's hat, like his cowboy hat. He was like leaning into us and we kept backing up while we were recording and he just kept leaning into us. And I was like, this is how this man gets things done. He just physically bullies people. His cowboy hat was in our mouth. Like, it was insane.
Richard Holtorf, you might remember from the coverage recently. I was just pulling up an article from our friends at Colorado Public Radio. He's the gentleman whose gun fell out of his pants as he was rushing to a vote at the Capitol.
Against abortion.
It
So
was just...
Yeah, I'm like, at least his gun didn't fall out of his pants.
I know, for real. But he could not answer my question about what Lauren's clothes had to do with her policy. Like, he couldn't. He was just in knots about it. He kept going, I'm the father of 5 daughters. I'm like, congratulations, you procreated. Like, welcome to the rest of the world.
That's the clip we should play. When you grab the microphone out of my hand and you followed up on him. Yeah, we're going to hear that right now.
My daughters, they know how to dress because they were raised right. But when I see people at the state capitol that are dressed a certain way, and then I go to a campaign event and I see a candidate arguably dressed the same way, I think that's a problem.
But how does that affect her politics? I don't understand what her outfit has to do with how she works as a politician.
About the controversy behind Lauren. She's had a lot of controversy.
Sure, I'm well aware.
A lot of those. So let's talk about decorum. As a statesman or stateswoman, let's talk about decorum. You actually have to dress a certain way at the state capitol, and you're supposed to dress a certain way. They have these rules for decorum.
Okay. But how does that affect her? I still don't understand how it changes the work that she does.
Well, look at the controversy that surrounds her and what has happened and how she dresses. Do you think that has anything to do with her controversy?
I don't think it has anything to do with the work that she does. I personally don't care how she dresses. I care about what she does in
Eastern Colorado, ma'am?
Oh, believe me, I got plenty of friends and family. Yeah.
I know, but in Eastern Colorado, if you're going to represent Eastern Colorado, you might want to consider that you want to be respectful.
This is also the same guy who bragged about paying for 2 abortions while speaking against abortions on the floor this year. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. I don't know how he got to the logic that this would be a good short story to share for his position, but we'd like to thank him for helping provide 2 people with access to abortion care when they really needed it. So thank you, Richard.
Wow. See, this is what I'm talking about. We know these things about him. Now voters can vote their conscience, vote their values.
Well, Lauren said something really interesting about him, which was, I just let him keep talking. It's like he does it to himself.
Oh, yeah.
And then we experienced that firsthand. So.
I don't agree with her on much, but I will agree with her on that one.
All right. We'll get more into that.
So strange. Yeah. More of that. Okay.
Bree, could you give us a fail?
Yeah. So last week, right after we recorded with Joshua Emerson, friend of the show, we were walking to get coffee and he was just like checking Instagram and he was like, oh my gosh, my friend Danielle Seawalker just got booted from this residency in Vail. She's an artist and it's since blown up and the story's been covered quite a bit, but we didn't really get to talk about it. And I just wanted to talk about it for a minute. So Danielle Seawalker is an Indigenous artist and she was the second artist to be chosen by the town of Vail to be a resident there for 2 weeks and do her, do her artwork and meet with the community and do all kinds of things. And they pulled out after someone brought attention to one of her pieces called G is for Genocide, which is in support of the Palestinian people and Palestinian solidarity. And it's one of those things where I'm like, did you not actually look at her work before you brought her into this? She never hides the fact that she's in activism for issues around all types of people, particularly indigenous issues across the world. And it just felt like a response that was to me. If I was the town of Vail, I'd be a little embarrassed. There was this quote, Colorado Sun ran this quote from the town manager, Russell Forrest, who said, "We started getting messages from individuals looking closely at her social media posts," as in looking at them, not looking closely at them, just literally pulling up her Instagram.
They're like, what's hiding between these pixels?
Yeah,
there's zoom in really tight
nothing.
here.
She was hiding nothing. The concern was around the very polarizing issue in Israel and Gaza right now. We didn't want public funds connected to a project about a polarizing geopolitical issue that is still playing out. Hey, do you know what her subjects are for all of her art? Everything could be considered this way. So I don't know. What did you? It was like a no duh.
Yeah, we have gone to see Danielle Seawalker's exhibit at History Colorado,
Incredible.
which is on right now. And there was a piece there where she had, it's kind of like a collage. She does these very stylized portraits of people. And in one of them, she had incorporated these checks, like money checks. And they were in the shape of like hair or something on this person, but they were the actual checks that she has gotten from the government for some kind of like land deal situation. It was like an act of resistance for her to not cash these checks and instead to incorporate them in her art. And if you asked her one question about that painting, you would have known
In a second.
This is her politics. Yeah. So this is our friend Joshua's point on this, but if you hire an indigenous artist to do their art, you have to accept their art for whatever it is. That's the point of art. You can't just hire an indigenous artist and pat yourself on the back for hiring an indigenous artist.
And expect she's just going to paint some nice portraits of people or whatever.
Yeah, or a picture. I don't know what people are expecting, but like she's a person and she's going to do the art that she does. This is the art she does. She has this feeling. This is what's happening. I think they should have been celebrating this. This is an exciting opportunity to reveal a very cool piece of art and have a great conversation in your community.
Mm-hmm. No, and this is another example of communities checking a box.
I was thinking
to have
about
an
the
indigenous
DEI of it all.
Yes, and patting themselves on the back. But then when people from those communities come with the real conversation, when you expect indigenous women to not talk about genocide. Like come on. And then you want to like sanitize it or say, oh, we didn't know. And this happens in a lot of communities with artists, especially with indigenous artists, Latina artists. They'll try to sanitize your messaging with trying to check the DEI box at the same time.
It's like show up but don't show up. We just want this one part of you. And Paul, again, to your point, this is an exhibit. She has an exhibit at History Colorado that incorporates artifacts and pieces of community conversation from the last 150 or whatever years that contextualizes her art. It is so political.
Yeah.
Did they not wander in there one time? And it's such a fail by Vail, first to just dismiss her this way, but to not do your homework if you're not. Art is so political.
Exactly. Vail, Doofus County.
And talk about bad press.
They biffed it. But on the other, they must have other stakeholders. We have to talk about that. People disagree about this issue.
Yes.
Honestly, that's all I want to say about that.
Yeah.
There's another
we
side
know
of this. Everyone knows this. This is the most controversial issue in the whole world right now.
But I think Vail failed in even being able to have that conversation.
Yes.
That's
the problem.
That's the problem. They didn't want to have that conversation. Yeah. And
Vail fail.
We
got a Vail fail on our hands.
And Danielle Seawalker has reissued that piece, G is for Genocide. If you'd like to purchase it on her Instagram, I noticed it's back up. So she's standing firm in what she believes in, and she's continuing to do the work that she does. Okay, let's move on to wins. Paul, what's your win?
My win, once again, I have been so steeped in
now I know how your wife
Congresswoman
feels.
Lauren Boebert's political philosophy. And but that's not what I want to talk about. My win is for you, Brie.
Oh, what?
My win is for you because this has just been, yet again, we've assigned ourselves an enormous project, a very challenging topic. Last year was Mayoral Madness. I think we kind of pushed ourselves to the brink with that, and we came out of it a lot stronger. And I feel the exact same way about this one. And there's no one I would have preferred to do this with than you.
Oh, thanks, Paul. I have to say, too, I think you bring a little levity for me because otherwise I'd be going bonkers.
Yeah. I mean, I've been going bonkers anyway.
Yeah, and we have different levels of bonkers for different reasons over this project. But
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I'm glad we're not doing it alone.
Yes.
It would feel insane. Although apologies to our spouses for having to listen to this nonsense.
I think it took my wife about 36 hours of me reading Bobert's book to be like, do not talk to me about this anymore.
Ever again.
But she'll tune in. It's a great story. The episode, I don't want to hype this up too much, but we got some really good stuff coming.
We've been in the weeds for months. Justine, what about you? What's your win?
Well, my win has to do with another sports ball team.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
Let's talk sports.
yes.
So our poor Rockies have actually just hit their longest winning streak in like years. I thought it was
Really?
like this season. Yeah, I was shocked. I was like, years? I think a 7-game winning streak.
Okay.
So the Rockies, I'll go see the Rockies play even if they are losing because I'm mostly there just to like
Hang out.
eat hot dogs and check out the hot players on the screen for both teams. But like,
Wait, who's the hunkiest Rocky right now?
I don't know right now, but mine what used to be oh my god,
They
I
had
can't
that guy,
remember.
Arenado?
Oh my god, I
Oh,
love
yeah,
He was-
Aaron.
he was a
Rodgers.
hunk.
cute.
No, Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he was the one. He kept me going for many seasons. So
I thought you were going to talk about the Nuggets. So I was like,
No,
yes,
so
they are doing fantastic.
I'm giving the Rockies a little credit
you.
because it's hard to live in the shadow of the Nuggets and the Avalanche right now.
It's true.
Especially in this season because it's like prime baseball season, but they're
Yeah.
getting even more overshadowed by our two really good teams.
You're right. So credit where credit is
Yeah,
due.
so we'll give them some credit. And
Go
in
Rockies.
their defense, I really don't follow along that closely. I just used to know if we were doing well by if we got tacos. So I'd be like, the Rockies must be doing great because we've been getting tacos all week long. So now I'm just like surprised by this, but I want to give them their credit and
Yes.
hopefully, we'll be in the playoffs with the Rockies at the end of the summer.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
bringing the
that's
Rockies
very
into this during their season that we ignore. That's
Hopeful.
nice of you.
That's nice. Yeah, good.
But-
Coors Field season.
Yes, it is. It's opening day season all season long. I just wanted to make a quick note before I go to my win. My husband informed me. I talked last week about engineer. He hated the term producer. Steve Albini passed away unexpectedly.
Hated the term producer?
Yeah, because his ethics are insanely airtight in how he believed in things. But he didn't feel like he was producing something. He was letting them do it. He was just engineering, helping them make them sound the best that they could.
Okay.
At any rate, I asked if he had any Denver connections because he had engineered hundreds of records. And my husband Greg was like, oh yeah, my friend Dave Devine, who's this classic jazz guitarist here in Denver. He's had a million projects. He's an educator at Metro. He's a composer. He's incredible. And he had this project in the early to mid 2000s called Delby L. And he recorded with Steve Albini like 15 years ago. So there is a
That's
Denver
cool.
connection. And I was really excited about that.
We should listen to some of that on the way out.
Yeah.
On the show today.
Yeah,
I'd love
Dave's-
to hear that.
Dave's work is so interesting and varied, but yeah, I'd love to hear some Albini related music on the show. But my actual win is my favorite local restaurant, Kokoro, has its own app now. And so I can just order directly from them and I don't have to go through DoorDash or whatever. And I used it the other day and it was amazing.
Tell us about the app.
I mean, it's just like you don't have to go through a third-party app to order, and they do delivery. I mean, obviously they have a radius, but they do delivery or pickup, and I've talked about this before. Their to-go food looks even more beautiful than it does when you get it at the table. They just like the way they package things is incredible, and it's not expensive, and it's delicious. And they've invested in an app for their own stores, and that's a big undertaking for a small company, and it works really well. And they text it. I'm on their list, of course.
Nice.
They're like 20% off if you order today. I'm like, say no more.
One thing I've always known about you is that you're a Kokoro Bowl fan.
Are you a Kokoro person, Justine?
I haven't, but I know Brie is because
Oh,
you
yeah.
talked about
Oh,
it
yeah.
in the past, and
It's
so
my chubbies, I think.
yeah,
It's-
I'm gonna have to try them out. now.
Oh, it's so good. It's
What's
so
your
good.
go-to order again? It's called like a splash or
Shrimp
something?
tempura splash.
Shrimp tempura splash. Okay.
or Kokoro Bowl, which is my husband's classic chicken, beef, veggies, rice. Oh, it's incredible. They have sushi, they have ramen, they have yakitori, they have so many different kinds of things. And it's like, again, it's super cheap for how good quality it is, and it tastes delicious, and now you can order it from your phone. So,
well, big win for Kokoro.
Love Kokoro.
Not
Thank
a sponsor, but
No.
shout out to Kokoro.
Well, Justine, Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bree. See you next time.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were Paul Caroli, Olivia Jewel Love, Elizabeth Kama, and Dylan Brogan. Peyton Garcia, Will Fulton, and Adrian Gonzalez write our morning newsletter, Hey Denver. I'm Bree Davies, your host. Our music is by Los Mocochetes with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. If you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Instagram at CityCast Denver, and tell father of 5 daughters Richard Holtorf about us next time you see him. You can sign up for our daily newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. See you next week.
The answer.